I'm going to give you this one. I'm just going to pull the pin out of the grenade here. The Minnesota Vikings should call the San Francisco 49ers this morning while they're emotional and upset, probably a little bit furious, and they should offer Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance. I'm going to read you a clip from John Lynch 3 years ago, 49ers general manager. We made the Garoppolo trade, but then there were some days when Kyle Shanahan was like in mourning because I think everybody knows his master plan was to have Kirk Cousins come in eventually and be the quarterback of the 49ers. I was proud of Kyle because I think he knew this was the right thing for our franchise, getting Jimmy Garoppolo. And he didn't hesitate. But even then, Jimmy had to really prove himself. Imagine being Kyle Shanahan in the final 30 seconds, 60 seconds of that game yesterday. You need a drive, you need your quarterback to rise up above pressure, above adversity. No. And Jimmy G drops back, pressure in his face, and freaks out. Does a 360, trying to get away from Aaron Donald, and just throws the ball up in the air to nobody. It gets picked off, and the game is over.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Shanahan absolutely surveying his options.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably looking at Trey Lance and saying, we liked him when we drafted him. Didn't really play all year. He played a little bit. Are we really going to win a Super Bowl next year with Trey Lance?
Right.
Or should I revisit the one that got away?
My love.
Speculation.
You have to put a phone call in.
Uh-huh. And you have to attach a second-round pick to San Francisco.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not going to be straight up.
Yeah.
You've got to put in a little taste, a little incentivizing is what
so
I
you're
like
saying
to call it.
Kirk and a second-round pick.
Yeah, from you,
for Trey
from
Lance.
the Vikings for Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't think you can do a full-up swap either.
No.
San Francisco would be like, no, we're not doing that.
Okay, on a scale of like 1 to 10, 1 being, this will never, ever happen, and 10 being it's already in works this morning. Like they probably already made the phone call. Where does this fall on the reckless scale?
Well, the reckless scale is high, but the likelihood's a 3. It's like a 2 or a 3, but it's damn reckless.
Well, hold on a second though, because Kwesi worked with Lynch, so he's called him to offer condolences, or is right now dialing up.
Yeah.
And Kwesi is, I am told, and it sounds like it's true, a genius, right? And so what do? You prey on your friends. You prey on them at their moment of weakness. You prey on your friends.
Smart people prey on their friends.
So you start up in sports. You sure do. You start. I don't, because I'm not calling people. But anyway, in Kwesi's case, he's calling his boy Lynchy to say like, "Oh man, brutal. Was that tough to? I'm John. You guys are so close. You're so close. Here's how close you are. You are Kirk Cousins and a second-round pick away from the Super Bowl." And I feel that can be you, John.
I mean, legitimately, if you ask...
It makes sense. I'm gonna put it at a 6. I'm gonna put it at a 6. It makes too much sense.
If you ask Kyle this morning, and real quick, let me back up a step, because I know there's a lot of people that, well, you think Cousins is garbage, and now you think that teams are going to trade for a garbage quarterback. No one on this show thinks Kirk Cousins is garbage. He's like the 13th or 14th best quarterback in the league.
Pro Bowl quarterback.
I think on most, he's a Pro Bowl quarterback, right? On most days, I think he's certainly a more accurate, better quarterback than Garoppolo. Garoppolo has probably more of a gravitational pull leadership thing to him.
Yeah.
They both have flaws. But if you're Kyle Shanahan specifically, and you work with this dude in Washington, and for whatever reason you love him, he's the one that got away. It's documented. His general manager is saying he was in mourning because Kirk wasn't available anymore. They had to make a move for Jimmy G. If you were to ask Kyle right now, this is a Super Bowl ready team that just needs a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo that's not going to short circuit, someone more accurate to get the ball to Debo in a big moment. Would you rather it be Trey Lance or Kirk Cousins in 2022? I think he says Kirk Cousins.
Oh, for sure he does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a question. Yes, this is a great idea. I love this.
Make the call.
And
get the haul.
Reckless speculation.
And to the Crusaders, I will say this. Because they're all going to be like, well, if you want to trade him to win a Super Bowl in San Francisco, he's going to win one here. I'm going to say this. Set Kirk free. You love Kirk. Crusaders, you love Kirk. He is your guy. set him free. Allow him to fly and be with a man who he knows, respects, and for all, I think there's coaching love there. I think there's quarterback and coaching love. Set Kirk free. If he's ever going to have a chance to win, it's there with that guy.
And kudos to
makes
San
perfect
Francisco
sense, dude.
for building up this ridiculous roster, right? Like they did a better job of building their roster around their average quarterback than the Vikings have the last few years. So, yeah, there's definitely their front office has done a better job than the Vikings front office the last 4 years with Kirk Cousins. I also have news. Even if they were to make that trade, he's not winning a Super Bowl with San Francisco.
No. Do not tip your hand. What if John Lynch watches this now?
It doesn't matter what's actually going to happen. It matters if they think it can happen.
Correct.
If the the Steelers, for instance, that's a ready-made playoff team that was being drugged down by Ben Roethlisberger. That's the type of team you would look at and say, he's not perfect, but Kirk Cousins is better than not having a quarterback, or better than what you saw with Ben Roethlisberger last year, right? Like, there's 3 or 4 teams like this. San Francisco.
Just look at the stats, Phil.
Pittsburgh.
His stats are great.
Pro Bowl stats, man.
Just look at the stats, okay? He's going to a Pro Bowl.
The Crusaders are going to be on fire if he wins Pro Bowl MVP.
The Crusaders, the Crusaders should want him in one place, and that is on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
Don't jump.
I mean driving to the game. No, I'm not saying to jump. I'm saying in San Francisco, Golden Gate Bridge. I'm trying to think of great places in San Fran. Alcatraz.
Well, you can't put him there.
He can go see it.
It's not that great. I've been to
I
San
love how
Fran.
you're just
Alcatraz
throwing
isn't that
out San Francisco tourist destinations.
Yeah.
By the way,
San
the
Francisco
49ers are like an
Francisco.
hour from San Francisco. They're not even in San Francisco.
You know what? We are living in a world of where things are perfect. They go back to Candlestick Park. I love Candlestick. It was a great dump.
All right, back to Judd here.
Okay, I've got one that's going to build upon what Phil said, but it's going to broaden the scope, okay?
Okay.
And the statement is this: never a better time. If you are remaking your team a little bit, fresh start, let's call it. Let's not single out like one person yet, but fresh start. It's a dawn of a new purple day in Egan. And you, let's say, are going to trade your quarterback. His name happens to be Kirk. What a better time than now for Kwesi to be working those phones. If Brady does indeed retire, which we expect, I think he's playing a game of cat and mouse with Schefter.
Yeah, Shefty doubled down on it and get up this morning, by the way.
Yeah,
he was not backing down from his report.
And I think it's going to take place. But if that happens, we have several desperate teams who are going to be trying to find plug-and-play quarterbacks right now, and a few of these teams are going to have no intention of being crappy. They might be crappy, but they're not going to think that they are going to be. Teams looking for a quarterback, I'll just start here, could include the Giants, the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Panthers, the Steelers, the Browns, the Colts, the Texans, the Broncos, and Washington. And don't forget that you might add the Dolphins and Seahawks if the new Dolphins coach decides that Tua is not good. I think they're going to stick with Tua. And then where Phil is, if Russ moves on from Seattle, the Seahawks might join that list, and a team I gave you from about those 9 or 10 might be subtracted. No better time.
So, yeah, I think yes, there's like 9 or 10 teams. If the Seahawks traded Russ, I think they would just be going into a rebuild, so I wouldn't put him on that list. So, like, it's 8 to 10 teams are going to be looking for an upgrade of some kind.
Yep.
And I'll give you a piggyback statement here. It's very obvious that the demand for quarterbacks is much, much greater or higher than the supply this offseason. And the only ones that, of all the teams you just listed, again, these are teams that are hoping to land an upgrade at quarterback, right? All those teams you just listed. Whether they actually do, it might be more of a lateral move for some of these teams, but there's only a small handful of actual needle-moving quarterbacks. Like Russell Wilson's one of them, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, depending on what happens with his legal situation. Mm-hmm. Jimmy G's going to land somewhere. Kirk is probably, like, if you're ranking the options here, like Aaron Rodgers is going to be probably the first domino to fall. Russell Wilson sounds like he's demanding a trade, sort of, but it hasn't become super frontal yet.
Is Pete staying there?
Yeah, I mean,
So, okay.
it's,
I thought he might just
it's
step
January
down eventually.
31st here.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Right.
I mean, I think it's been announced that there's no changes. They're just going to run it back.
Interesting.
So with demand that great and I mean, there's 9 or 10 teams and like maybe 4 dudes who move the needle for these teams. There's going to be bidding wars for these quarterbacks. So you'd almost be foolish to not explore trying to get a first round pick and a third round pick for Cousins. Somebody will pay. And I know the salary for 2022 is kind of a disaster, but I don't think teams look at his contract as a problem. They'll just, they'll extend him for 2 or 3 years. Well, why don't the Vikings do it? Free Kirk Cousins. Free Kirk Cousins.
Set him free. If you love him, set him free.
If the Steelers feel like he's the guy, that's cool. Send him over to the Steelers, and they can go and try as hard as they might. But yeah, this would be a great time to pick up the phone and make some calls. What's the % chance you think they actually trade Cousins in the next 3 months?
Oh, I think it's higher than people think. I think that it's if Harbaugh's the coach, I'm a little bit more on the fence about it. If they go with a younger coach, I think that there's a pretty good chance. I'm going to put it at 40% that he's traded.
And then what's the other 60%?
He stays.
That he stays or that they restructured, which I don't want. But I'm just saying, I think they're going to explore at least trading him. But until they actually name the coach, it's a little bit more difficult to handicap right now. But it's tough. I think that there is a very good chance, though, that they explore it. And I'm telling you, I do not think that San Francisco idea is a dumb idea. I think it's a good idea. I would make that call, and I would attach a draft pick and say, look, Trey Lance might be great, but he ain't yet.
Well, and you answer the question, Dax, and I have another 49ers follow-up.
I have it at about 55% that he's traded. I've kind of been withering at about 50-50 since basically the regular season ended for the Vikes. I think it's still about 55. I would actually think the way you're teasing it up, Judd, I thought you were going to say 60 or 70.
40 seems low to me.
Yeah, 40
I don't know
seems
with
lower.
the coach yet. I just don't know.
Sure. But I think it's still a coin flip because we don't know who the head coach is going to be. But with Kwesi coming in here and having basically no attachment to Kirk, I don't think we can put it as a definitive that he's still locked in here.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's a good point.
So here's another thing. So the 49ers on this list of teams that are trying to upgrade, right? Colts, another one, like Carson Wentz. They don't want Carson Wentz. Is there a team out there? Like there's teams that you could make a trade with. Like if you traded with the Colts, they would want to offload Wentz. So there's some like the Browns would want to offload Baker. San Francisco has Jimmy G under contract, but there's only like $1 million or $2 million guaranteed, so they could move on. Teams know that they could probably just cut him and then you can get him for cheaper. But what I was going to say is, would you trade Kirk and a second for Lance, or would you try to find a team that would give you picks for Kirk, and then you'd have to go find your own Trey Lance, like Malik Willis or somebody else? I mean, I liked him before the draft.
That's the question.
I mean, and also the storyline, Marshall, Minnesota. I think we forget that he's from Minnesota.
I don't care about that.
I don't care about that either.
I get that, but also the buildup of that I'm saying it could be a lot of fun because it's a hometown boy franchise quarterback who's literally from here. So I think the demand and stuff for that is even cooler. I know you guys are.
But do we want? But if we think that he justified the spot that he was drafted in, I make that trade.
I think a lot of people would say
on the fence about it. Then we probably don't.
A lot of people would say that he would be the number 1 quarterback in this year's draft class, right? Like if you were to take him, just if he was.
Yes, he would be.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, so let's just say, would you trade Kirk Cousins in a second round pick for the best quarterback in this year's draft class, and save, by the way, like $35 million to the cap?
100%.
Be more like $30 million, but yeah,
I would
too.
My problem is this with Kirk and my odds on him being traded. While I personally would trade him, if Harbaugh gets the job, I mean, I guess that there's a case to be made that Harbaugh would have convinced the Wilfs, I can win now, and he probably would have to possibly sell that with Kirk. I could see Jim saying, give me Kirk, I'll win now, sign Kirk to an extension? Because the reality for Harbaugh's shelf life is probably what, guys? About 4 years, 5 years?
It's been that way everywhere.
You'd probably extend Kirk, which I don't like, but by 3 years and say, go win right now.
And
that might be what they say.
Then if you're Kwesi, you are now attaching your entire career as a general manager, at least the first time around, and there's no guarantee of a second stint, to Kirk Cousins and Jim Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. And it's a high wire act. Do I think Jim Harbaugh could get the most out of Kirk Cousins? I do. But how do you fix the rest of the roster, right? You could maybe take 15 or 20 million off Kirk's cap hit for this year, push them down the road. There's still they need to cut 25 or 30 more elsewhere. It's almost impossible to rebuild this thing up to Super Bowl contention in one off season. And if that's the case, you're better off just sort of clearing out cap space for 2023.
I agree with that.
That's why I ultimately lean away from Harbaugh. But sign me up. I mean, if they pull the trigger on Harbaugh, like, I'm here for it.
I'm conflicted. It would be so much fun.
Yeah. Okay, Dex, back to you. Statements here.
Yeah, my next statement is, and I hate to be fun police here, but God, I hope the Super Bowl is as good as the NFL playoffs have been. I think the bar is so high right now after what we saw in the divisional round, which might have been the greatest football weekend of all time. Last night and championship weekend was also damn good. Like, we had two amazing games that came right down to it, and I'm just hoping the Super Bowl lives up to that. What was it, 3 years, the Rams-Patriots one, when the Rams went the first time with Jared Goff? It was like 10-3, and it was just an absolute dud of a Super Bowl. With how fun these NFL playoffs have been, I actually still enjoyed Super Wildcard Weekend. I thought it was still great, even though Judd hates 7 seeds. I'm just hopeful that this Super Bowl is just as fun as this NFL playoffs have been, because it's been an absolute wild ride. Like, you see why the NFL playoffs and the NFL as a whole are the king sport in this and in all of the USA. This is why the playoffs have been so much fun.
I'm laughing because we all love baseball on this show, but like baseball is like meeting in hotel conference rooms, trying to figure out, okay, how do we
Super 2 status?
How do we figure out?
You're so right.
This complicated free agency web, and how do we get a 25-year-old to watch our product? Meanwhile,
I got a Super 3.
Joe Burrow's wearing a $15,000 gold chain or whatever it is, diamond chain. I mean, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. I almost expected 2 letdown games this last weekend, because how could you ever live up to what happened divisional weekend? And it did.
And the Chiefs game started off awful. It was an 18-point deficit. You thought, oh, the Bengals are going to get run out of the stadium. And then it's like, hold on a second. This turned into a great game.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, man. I love Joe Burrow.
Speaking of Joe Burrow, okay, my next statement is great quarterbacks lift everything and everyone else up. They set the tone for the organization. Mm-hmm. Joe Burrow has been pressured 59 times in 3 playoff games. 59 pressures. He got sacked 9 times in the divisional round.
I'm not surprised, yes.
And he just stays cool as you can possibly be, if not even a little bit arrogant with some swagger despite all that pressure. He almost says, bring it on. How much more do you got? I don't care, right? And he just stands in the pocket, or he runs, despite having torn his knee up last year, runs between linebackers for key first downs. I mean, everything about him has changed the identity of this organization over the course of the last, 2 years, basically, year and a half. 59 pressures in 3 playoff games. It is okay to rise above adversity and still pull your team as a leader and as a great quarterback to victories. I say that independent of any sort of evaluation of the Viking situation.
So you're saying, wait, hold on a second here.
Despite the comparisons that you guys are going to want to draw.
Are you trying to tell me that his offensive line is bad and he's allowed to succeed?
I am praising Joe Burrow.
There are rules against this.
This is about Joe Burrow.
There is a group of very passionate fans in my Twitter timeline who have told me before that if you don't have the greatest offensive line of all time, you're not allowed to succeed.
I'm just here to talk about Joe Burrow. Okay.
Judd, this will go past Judd's habit. This is Shawn Michaels slapping The Undertaker in the face, saying, do it again. I dare you. Put me out. Try it one more time. Try it one more time. Yes, I'm all in on Burrow, dude. God, I love him.
He is so fun to watch. So fun to watch. But it's impossible. It's impossible to find good young quarterbacks. It's not possible.
Yeah, well, you'll never find him.
Yeah. All right, back to Judd.
No calls are the best calls, is my statement. After a regular season of the officiating crews throwing flags and slowing games down like it was going out of style, like there would be people fired if you don't throw 25 flags, and officials slowing games down and disrupting the flow of not great games, but what certainly could have been qualified as good games, but instead were turned into boring games. The officials, again in the playoffs, and especially on Sunday, got it right. We saw flags, but you know what we didn't see? We didn't see a flag every time that we saw a potential foul. I saw a bunch in the Chiefs game. There were a bunch they didn't call. There were shots to the helmet. There were cornerbacks tugging on receivers, and they called some. But you know what they didn't do, you guys? They didn't call every one. And I am here to applaud that. They let the game flow. And I know on every play, you could call holding on every single play, and that's true. But you know what? It's better if you don't. So I applaud that, and I ask one question. How can we get the league to understand that the amount of flags that we saw on Sunday in those two games, which were penalties when absolutely necessary to call them, should be what we see all season long?
Yeah, I think they try to set the tone, right, with points of emphasis in September and part of October.
But it ruins games. It ruins the flow. This was great. This was fantastic. Kudos to everyone who had a hand on a hanky on Sunday and said, nah, this game's pretty fun to watch.
Nah, it was great.
Kudos to you.
Yeah. It was freaking great. Can I, Dex, do we have that graphic that I sent you? Because I'd like to, my next statement is, the streak continues. No team has ever won a Super Bowl with a quarterback making more than 13% of the team's salary cap. And we'll show you here the 2021 quarterback cap numbers next to, also just to look ahead, the 2022 quarterback cap numbers.
Okay.
So there's a clear cutoff. Matthew Stafford was at 11% of the team's salary cap. Joe Burrow was at 4% of the team's salary cap. And you'll see that there's just a handful of guys that have basically no chance. Can we go full screen on that?
Yes, sir.
So 2021 on the left for the YouTube audience here. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Jimmy G, and Ben Roethlisberger were the 6 quarterbacks above the 13% line. They're all eliminated now. Matt Stafford, 11%. Joe Burrow, 4.5% of the team's salary cap. You might be asking, what about Pat Mahomes? Didn't he sign that big contract? He did, but they reshuffled money so that they could lower his cap hit to where's he at on here? To, 4%. He was at 4% this year at $7.5 million. Big time missed opportunity to win only one Super Bowl with Pat Mahomes on those sort of team-friendly contracts the last few years. In terms of next year, and this is before restructures, a lot of these guys are going to get restructured. There's 10 quarterbacks that are over the 13% line. Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Jimmy G. Those guys are all at 13% or above. Again, that's before restructures. So the target line to get to, if you want to be 13% or below, is $26 million for a cap hit. Unless you think that your quarterback is going to be the first quarterback to buck this trend, almost 30 years of the current NFL salary cap structure. So that means if you're going to restructure Kirk in some way, you have to cut his cap number from 45 to a maximum of $26 million so you can spend money on the rest of your roster. A center, a guard, another edge rusher, a starting cornerback, whatever it may be. It's very interesting. And I know Jimmy G was a play or two away from being in the Super Bowl.
Right.
But once again, the streak continues. If you have a quarterback making 13% or more of the team's salary cap, sorry, you aren't winning a Super Bowl until someone does it.
Basher. Hater. Can't believe you.
I saw Kirk march down the field against the Bengals week 1 and set up his team for a victory.
Kirk won that game.
All right, Kirk won that game.
Kirk got to win. You know what? Kirk wins. That's the new stat. Kirk wins. Vikings 0-1. Kirk 1-0. The next week, Cardinals, right? Vikings 0-2. Kirk 2-0. Kirk got off to a perfect start, you haters.
Yeah, in September. I'm talking January. I'm talking February here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Gets
right,
cold, you got to improve.
Any final statements from you two jokers? I'm just trying to bring up objective, fair points about the National Football League, and you keep dragging Kirk Cousins through the mud.
I got one more. It's got nothing to do with Kirk Cousins or quarterback play, but it has everything to do with the National Football League. My statement is this. The Applebee song and halftime analysis don't mix. So this is one of the greatest blunders I have ever seen when they went down to the field at the Chiefs-Bengals game, and right behind the studio team of what? Boomer and Phil Simms and Nate Burleson and James Brown and Cower, like right behind them are the speakers that are blaring the Applebee song guy as loud
Walker
as possible.
Hayes.
I don't know.
Put some respect on his name.
Yeah, no, he's the Applebee's guy. I just thought I'd like to go to Applebee's. That's all I could think of. That's all I could hear. That is one of the greatest blunders, honestly. Like,
did that producer get fired? So there's a producer that had the worst 15 minutes of their professional life on Sunday.
Who paraded the speakers out right behind them and left? Hey, Jerry, this is a perfect place for the speakers.
Well, but it's not. But the speakers are going to be where they're going to be. It's a halftime show.
Yeah,
you've got so many places you could just move to do. They could have just. So Fox learned their lesson. So was it the Chainsmokers were playing in the NFC halftime, and so the Fox crew wasn't sitting at the desks. They were just standing with microphones in an area where there weren't speakers.
Yep.
And these poor guys are literally, JB is leaned over to Phil Simms just yelling a question.
Boomer's
in his
laughing.
face.
Boomer's just I can't hear anything you guys are saying.
Bengals can come back today, Jim. It's going to be awfully tough.
At one point, Boomer was like, I don't know if one of you guys already said this, but...
But you know what we don't need?
Aaron Rodgers is going to boycott the Super Bowl. Back to you.
We do not need extravagant halftime shows and concerts at the conference title games. If you're not going to show them, which they don't, right? Don't do them. The only reason to do it is if you're going to televise it. The fans in a stadium freezing their tuchuses off do not need I can't believe it's the Applebee's guy. This is going to be great. Get the Applebee's guy off the field. Just do your halftime little thing, or don't do nothing. Sell your beers and let's start the football game.
I was texting with a friend of mine who used to work for CBS Sports and corporate in this kind of exact realm. And I was like, what do you think is happening right now watching this unfold? And he said, I bet all my bosses and execs are losing their mind. And I said, well, but how does it happen? How did this transpire? And his case was, I bet that the Chiefs didn't communicate their plans to CBS since it was a championship game. The Chiefs were probably working with the NFL, and CBS was working with the NFL. And probably between the CBS and Chiefs, something got lost in translation, and someone's ass probably got fired, if not absolutely reamed, for what transpired yesterday. Dude,
they knew.
Goodell was there too.
Yeah.
The segment starts and they have 8 minutes or whatever, and it's not like there's a studio they can throw back to. They are the anchors for those 8 minutes. And so it'd be one thing if all right, this is a train wreck, let's go back to the studio and you guys figure it out. That was the studio. Do you guys want for the road here
Reckless speculation.
a DM I just got?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is highly reckless.
Always.
This is highly reckless, and it is from an anonymous Twitter account.
Okay.
So take it with a grain of salt here, okay?
All right.
But we've been talking a lot of Jim Harbaugh. And this anonymous direct message says, Phil, I wanted to give you an update. One of my friends, so one of my friends' friends
Grandma's
plays football at Michigan.
Okay.
They were told just a few minutes ago here on this Monday morning that there will be an unplanned, spontaneous meeting that everyone has to attend.
Reckless speculation.
Oh my God.
Why would the Michigan football team be called into an unplanned It wouldn't be for an extension.
You think it's because the head coach at said school is going to be the next Vikings coach or the next Dolphins
or
coach?
Dolphins coach.
Yeah. I think he's gone.
Don't the Vikings have to have a face-to-face interview with a minority candidate, though, first? And so if this news drops today, it's the
I
Dolphins.
believe you're correct. Yes, I believe that is correct.
But they are. But isn't today the day that they're talking to Raheem Morris?
That's what Deck said. Yeah, they're flying. They're flying out there, right? Since
LA.
the Rams qualified for the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Interesting. So I wonder if I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I mean, we'll see. That is totally reckless, but I love it.
Reckless speculation.
I love this time of year is so much fun. I love
Dude,
it.
and think about. There's a lot of people that are new to the show here, Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily, and maybe this is your foray into the reckless speculation lifestyle.
Welcome to the club.
Build up the endurance, man, because we got a week of there's coaching stuff this week, and then it's going to be months of free agency speculation. Kirk Cousins,
Right. It's a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like you don't come in for a day and be like, I'm just going to sample it. If you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
And
You're in
once
the
you
club.
check
You're in
in
the club.
to the club, you're going to be in the club, and you need to stay in the club.
forever.
That's the first rule of the Reckless Speculation Club.
Speculation.
Don't talk about reckless speculation.
Never. Not with Kirk stands. Not with the Crusaders.
We got to get to Purple Daily here, so be sure we're going to go a little bit deeper on the updates on the coaching search and some other things that pertain to the Vikings. So check it out, Purple Daily. There's 2 YouTube channels too, the Score North YouTube channel. Please click subscribe, and the Purple Daily YouTube channel. You can spread the word about this community of Vikings and Minnesota sports fans. We'll see you guys tomorrow.